If you're moving to southern Maine, Route 4 is a road you might be driving on quite a bit. So let's check out what your daily commute could look like in the middle of a snowstorm. Let's get into it. All right, so right now we're in South Berwick. So South Berwick is a town of roughly 8,000 people. It's not super big. In South Berwick, and really all of the towns that we're going to be looking at today, are one removed from the coast, if that makes sense. So they're not technically coastal towns, but they're all pretty much within 20 to 30 minutes driving distance, depending on where you live in the town. So they're all in great locations, a little bit quieter than some of the coastal towns, but generally speaking, the lifestyle is still pretty similar. So people living in South Berwick are going to go to Marshwood, the Marshwood school systems. There's also Berwick Academy, which is here, which is a private school. So really pretty much anybody in the general area could, in theory, go there. But all in all, it's a pretty great place to live. They have a super cute downtown area, which we're coming up on here. We're obviously kind of in the middle of a snowstorm, so the visibility is a little bit low, but I wanted to get out here during, when it was snowing quite a bit so that you could really see what it looks like to drive through some of these conditions. And if I need to remake the video when the visibility is a little better, I totally can, but I thought it might be kind of beneficial to see this. One thing I did want to note about South Berwick is that in this downtown area, traffic does get pretty backed up. There used to be no stoplights in South Berwick. Now there is some. They wanted to kind of preserve the old charm of the town, if you will, from what I've heard at least. But traffic does get a little bit backed up. If you know some of the back roads, that can be helpful, but you're pretty much driving through people's neighborhoods, so I'm sure that probably bothers the people that live in the area. And while I don't think traffic should be a deciding factor, and if you move to South Berwick, it's definitely something to consider and important to note that you're gonna have to learn the back roads. I also just briefly wanted to mention that Route 4 is really only in South Berwick for a short period of time. There is a strip of the road that technically touches Berwick before we get into North Berwick, but it doesn't go through their downtown area, and there's really not much to see of Berwick on this road. So we are going to skip it, or skip talking about it today, just because it really deserves to be a video all on its own, and we're not really going to see a large chunk of the town today. right, so somewhere around here, we're entering into the town of North Berwick. Now, this is a little bit of a smaller town. It only has about 5,000 people in it, and it has a different school system than South Berwick. So North Berwick, as well as Berwick, the town that I briefly mentioned with another 8,000 people in it, they both go to the Noble school systems. So I've mentioned before on this channel that if you go to, say, South Berwick, you go to the Marshwood school system, and there are exceptions to that, but generally speaking, the population is just so low here that there aren't multiple high schools for, you know, one town. It's pretty much if you live in a certain town, you're going to be going to that town's school system. Now, you can pay a fee and go to another school system, or if you have like a valid reason, you know, there, you can certainly switch to another school. Most people choose not to. But yeah, so South Berwick goes to the Marshwood school systems. Berwick and North Berwick go to Noble. Some towns are just so small that they have to go to a conjoined high school for multiple different towns. So enough on that. But anyways, we're kind of coming into North Berwick's downtown area here. And again, it's a little hard to see just because the conditions are a little crazy today, but there isn't a huge downtown area here anyways. There's, you know, a few small restaurants, not really any shops to my knowledge. There's some banks and general stuff like that, but it's not really like a walkable downtown area, whereas South Berwick is, and along with Sanford, which I'll mention towards the end of this video. And if you happen to live somewhat near this kind of downtown area, if you will, it's only about maybe a 20-minute drive, maybe even 15 minutes to the beach. All right, and somewhere along here, we're coming up on the city of Sanford. So Sanford is the southernmost city in the entire state of Maine, and the qualifications to become a city are, I'm assuming, fairly low compared to other states, just because Sanford only has about 22,000 people in it and it's considered a city. But that said, it is one of the larger, populated towns or cities in the area. It definitely has a lot more people at 22,000 versus the town next to it, like North Berwick. So some pluses to that are that you're going to have a lot more amenities. So a lot of the towns around here either won't have grocery stores, they'll have one grocery store, minimal gas stations, not a lot of amenities to the town. Whereas Sanford, you're going to have multiple grocery stores, you have a Walmart, tons of different gas stations, really just a lot more resources than some of the smaller towns in the area because it is considered a city. If you have kids that live in Sanford go through the Sanford public school system. There is a few different elementary schools in Sanford, but to my knowledge, only one middle school and one high school. I actually grew up between Sanford and Wells, so I'm quite familiar with both of those two areas. So fortunately for me, I kind of have extensive knowledge of a few different towns in the area versus only growing up in one. Now, some people who are moving to southern Maine aren't really looking to move to a city. I say city very lightly. Like I said, it still only has about 22,000 people in Sanford. But if you're looking for some peace and quiet, Sanford might not be the best place for you to move, only because it does have a denser population than a lot of surrounding areas. And it's not really what people are picturing when they're thinking, picturesque southern Maine. It is only, 15 to 20 minutes away from the closest beach, but it definitely looks a lot different than some of those coastal towns. So we're not really going to do an extensive driving tour of Sanford today because we're really only driving on Route 4, but Sanford itself is really a whole nother video that we'll get into at a later date. But it's definitely somewhere you should check out if you're thinking about moving to southern Maine and just kind of see what the difference is between somewhere with, 22,000 people in Sanford versus a town of 5,000 like North Berwick. right, so like I said, we're gonna end the tour in Sanford on Route 1 just because you could keep driving for a pretty good ways on this road alone. But this is a huge chunk of the road that a lot of people who live in, you know, the southern York County area of Maine, this is a road that gets driven by a lot of people's daily commute, and it's definitely an important road to get to know. This video could very easily turn into really more of what it's like to drive through a snowstorm in Maine. Again, my apologies, the visibility is not that great today, but I thought it might be kind of interesting to do one of our driving videos out when there is a lot of snow, when people are driving a little bit slower, when there's people pulled over on the sides of the roads. There might, you know, be some accidents. Fortunately, there was none today, but it's another aspect of living in southern Maine that's really important to see. So I hope you found this video helpful, and let us know what you'd like to see next. A lot of people really like our driving tour videos, so we try to throw a few of these in there every once in a while as well. And we'll see you next time.